Well, good morning and welcome to today's event. My name is Ian McLean and I'm the President and CEO of the Greater Kitchener-Waterloo Chamber of Commerce. Before we begin, I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge that we do live and work on the traditional territory of the Neutral, Anishinaabe, and Haudenosaunee peoples, as we seek a renewed relationship based on a foundation of mutual understanding and respect. As participants in today's event, we're coming together as one. We believe everyone is free to be their true self and receive the same respect and opportunity, regardless of age, ethnicity, gender, culture, identity, sexual orientation, beliefs, or language. We hope you'll join us in fostering a positive environment here today to ensure a safe and welcoming space for all. Before we begin, I'd like to thank the sponsors and our partners for today's event and for this series. Without their support, these programs would not be possible. So a big thank you to our bronze sponsor, the Boardwalk, our community partners, the City of Kitchener, the City of Waterloo, Communitech, Explore Waterloo Region, North Guide, the Township of Woolwich, and Waterloo Economic Development Corporation. Our production sponsor is Good Co Productions, and our host venue sponsor, the Ken Sealing Waterloo Region Museum. Please help me, join me in thanking these incredible sponsors. Got a full house today of community leaders, but I would like to take a moment to recognize some elected officials who are in attendance with us today and members of the Chamber's board. Karen Redmond, Chair of Region Waterloo. Dorothy McCabe was here, just dashed off, Mayor of Waterloo. Sandy Shantz, the Mayor of Township of Woolwich. Chantal Huniak, Regional Councillor. Sue Foxton, Regional Councillor. And from our Board of Directors, Kathy Snyder. I think Kathy's here somewhere. There's Kathy, thank you. And Shelley Forwell, over here. There she is over there, from Walter Fady. Thank you so much for joining us today. During COVID, the business organizations came together to deal with the challenges that were uniquely facing business, but also community. So the Business Economic Support Team of Waterloo Region, which is the Cambridge Chamber of Commerce, our Chamber of Commerce, Communitech, Waterloo Economic Development Corporation, and Explore Waterloo, came together to deal with the issues that arose and needed to be addressed specific to COVID. But we've stayed meeting once a week to address now the challenges that have emerged, not only from COVID, but from the growth in our community. And the discussion really has led to the question that we keep asking. We're going to be 1 million people, so Vision 1 million. Are we ready to be a community of 1 million people? So the Chamber has taken this on. This is an important question for our members, our employers, our businesses, and for future generations in the business community. So we've started and we'll be doing a 4-part series that's going to address the topics of concern. And today we start with healthcare. And today's discussion is an important one for the community. As we project to move towards 1 million residents by 2050, some of us think it's sooner, but either way, by 2050, we'll be 1 million people in Waterloo Region. And to stay on top of the needs of our growing population, we have to plan for the future today. And so today we focus on healthcare in the region. We'll hear from our three hospitals, all who are going to talk about the growth within the sector and the needs for both infrastructure, but also professionals. So it gives me pleasure to introduce our 3 guests today. Ron Gagnon. Ron is the President and CEO of the Grand River Hospital, appointed in November 2018. Previously, Ron served as the President and CEO of the Sault Area Hospital, and prior to that as Senior VP of Corporate Services at Sault Area Hospital. He led the Sault through the development of a new hospital facility, the successful management of the financial challenges, and a wide range of quality improvement and wellness initiatives. He holds an honors Bachelor of Commerce degree from Laurentian and is a CPA and certified management accountant. Please join me in welcoming Ron. Come on up to the stage, Ron. Mark Pham. Mark is the president of the St. Mary's General Hospital, home of the regional cardiac, chest, and eye programs. A certified health executive, Mark has a broad base of industry knowledge based on his 20 years working in the health system. Mark also contributes to new learners in the health system through his work as an assistant professor with the Institute for Health Policy, Management, and Evaluation and Associate Professor at the Rotman School of Management at the University of Toronto. Welcome, Mark. And joining us from Cambridge Memorial Hospital is Stephanie Pearsall. Stephanie brings over 30 years experience and commitment as a registered nurse, having advanced through progressive leadership roles to become VP of Clinical Programs and Chief Nursing Executive at Cambridge Memorial Hospital. In this capacity, she oversees all patient services, including inpatient and outpatient programs, diagnostic imaging, laboratory, and pharmacy, ensuring the delivery of exceptional care. Beyond Cambridge Memorial, Stephanie's leadership and commitment to excellence extend through the healthcare sector. She co-chairs the Provincial Adult Critical Care Committee, where she plays a pivotal role in shaping policies and practices that enhance patient care, both regionally and provincially. Her expertise is nationally recognized through her work as a surveyor for Accreditation Canada, where she ensures healthcare facilities across the country meet the highest standards. In 2023, she was awarded the prestigious YMCA Woman of Distinction Award, highlighting her exceptional contributions to healthcare and her steadfast dedication to improving patient outcomes. Please join us, Stephanie. Please welcome our guest to the stage. Health and safety first. Not one of us used the stairs, but we all made it up here successfully. So as we start the discussion, and I think this is an important one for the community, and certainly as the business community understands, from our perspective at the Chamber, we talk about business building community, which really means business can't be successful without a healthy community and successful community, and vice versa. So this issue today is a business issue, it's a community issue, it's an issue for all of our citizens in the community. So let's start. One of the areas that we focus on and have for many years is the shortage of family physicians and specialists now, impacting communities across Canada, Ontario and Canada. And I wonder, is there a different challenge for growing communities like ours? Like, the growth in our community doesn't mean there's a static number of we need X many, family doctors that we're short or specialists. The need continues to grow. Does that present a different challenge from communities that aren't growing as fast? Maybe I'll start with Mark and go across.
Thanks, Ian. Yeah, it absolutely does. Our community is on an exciting growth trajectory, but the community is also changing quite a bit in terms of the makeup. Of course, many of our community are getting older, typically use more healthcare as we get older, but we're also seeing an influx of new immigrants, new refugees, that their healthcare needs are changing as well. So it's not just about growth, it's also about a change in the clinical presentation. When we think about our family physician shortage, it translates for us in terms of the hospital physician shortage as well. Fortunately, folks use hospital care a lot less than family medicine. But for every family physician we're short, we're also short hospital physicians, we're also short hospital beds. And the acuity that we're seeing, how sick patients are when they come to us, is that much more these days. So it's going to be a challenge for our community to take on, but it's going to be an exciting one because we think there are solutions.
Yeah, I think I would add to that every community is feeling this pressure in one way or another. So in a growing community and a community that's becoming more and more diverse and older, I would say we have a double whammy. One, we need to replace primary care physicians and others providing primary care who are retiring, which is the same across all communities. But then from a growing standpoint, you have an add-on of needing even more to help serve that population. So you have both of those. But we also can't lose sight of the fact that we are still asking primary care to do a lot of work that isn't eyeball to eyeball with patients. And I think nowhere better than this community can we start to figure out different ways of allowing primary care to do what they want to do, which is be with their patients. And that's another way of creating that capacity. One of the things that we do know is we are competing. As municipalities, as a region, we are competing with other parts of the province to be able to sustain our growth and draw this critical expertise to our community.
Stephanie?
Thanks. Going third is always, they've said all of the great things, but I think we also have to look at things a little differently. I think, first of all, really grateful to both chambers for working with us to really entice primary care into our communities, because it really is about embedding primary care in. I think we do have to look at it a bit differently in that maybe it isn't a primary care, that there are other options. So, we have nurse practitioner-led clinics and different things like that, that maybe we look at healthcare a little bit differently and provide access in that way. So
let me follow up a little bit on that. So, we heard a little bit about innovation and using technology. So there's more of the professionals spending more time with patients, which is what they should be doing more of. You talk about nurse case practitioners. Is that one of the innovations that we have to be pioneering here or taking advantage of, is different use of professionals like nurse case practitioners and others, so that we're, dividing the work that needs to be done and still providing that gateway to healthcare, which is primary care in one way, shape, or form?
Yeah, definitely. I think most family health teams have nurse practitioners embedded into their practices. And, often you will hear actually patients like to go see a nurse practitioner. They feel that they get a little more face time, which, leads to what Ron talked about of other duties that perhaps primary care physicians are doing. I think we need to really look at all of our regulatory healthcare providers. What can dietitians do? What can pharmacists do? And embedding that to provide really a comprehensive package of care that is just not resting on the shoulders of a primary care physician.
Okay, and I wanted to start with that because we didn't want to just talk about the new hospital and the hospital merger, but I think that's an important topic to come to, which is great news for many of us who have thought that there needs to be an integrated system, particularly between the hospitals, and the very notion that Stephanie's here today, and it's a great representative of Cambridge-Mora, but we've done this a couple of times, or certainly Ron 3 times, and a couple of times with Mark and Patrick. We always have a 3 hospital presence because that is a healthcare system for the region of Waterloo. But let's talk about the hospital merger. That was big news that kind of predated the site selection and saying we need a new hospital, because there was a lot of recognition that we haven't had a new hospital built in 50 years. We'll come to the hospital site and that build, but the merger is happened during this discussion as well. So maybe Mark and Ron, walk us through how that happened and what it means practically for this community and the build for a new hospital, and where that places us with the province, right? Is that we have a community-esque, not one health system versus the other. So let's talk about the merger part, like and how you're working together.
Yeah, sure. Happy to start. And where I would start is there's a 40-year history of the 2 hospitals working together, and we had the benefit of actually building off of that. And as we started the planning for the new hospital, which is long overdue, our original plan was 2 hospitals operating in one facility. And last fall, we did a pretty extensive amount of consultation, both internally and externally. And almost to a person, the feedback we got is you need to do this together. You need to do this as one. So our boards took that to heart. And then starting in April of this year, actually, put forward a motion between St. Joe's, St. Mary's, Grand River, move towards becoming one organization by April 2025. And that's what's been driving us. And one phrase that continues to drive our work is community before brand. And I think that's really powerful in the decision-making that we've been making, that this isn't about the 2 organizations. This is about what the community and the region and the broader region needs from us. And that's why we're moving in this direction.
If you think about how that translates, imagine if we hadn't gone down this road and you were walking to the emerge of the new building and there was a blue lane for Grand River and a green lane for St. Mary's, or pick your colors, and you had to choose as a patient which side of the emerge you want to walk into. That's probably the worst experience we could provide. So that's why, everyone was really clear about that. And I would say our boards really took that to heart, and our leadership teams have taken that to heart as well. So we're excited about what this brings. It's a lot of change. As Ron just said, he had to recount because it was only April. And we are moving fast, to the credit of our boards as well, some of who are here. But we're excited about what this brings. It also positions us differently in the province. Together, the total combined budget of the two hospitals will be $150 million. It'll be one of the larger hospitals in the province. And that does change our advocacy position at Queen's Park. It changes our discussions at Queen's Park as we think about not only the capital project, which I know will come up, but also how we advocate for the additional hospital care and broader healthcare needs. If you look today, we are underbedded in terms of number of hospital beds per population compared to the rest of the province. We have lower funding rates. We're more efficient. This community rallies and solves problems, which is great. But now we have to take that voice and bring the solutions to Queen's Park so we can also get more support and bring more healthcare into the region. So we're excited about how it positions us.
And I think it does build, and maybe touch on this too, because not everyone's aware of this, but you've had a joint chief of staff. You've been doing a lot of the actual work for many years. Maybe just touch on that part of the hospital staff themselves have been operating as one unit for all intents and purposes. And did that, I guess that must have led to the next logical step is new build, one board or one hospital.
Yeah, I can start. So yes, we've had for the past 20 years, we've had a common medical staff, which means all the physicians who work at the hospital are credentialed and able to work at both hospitals. And that does change the culture in an organization because it means you have a large clinical body working as one. Many of our nurses, our porters also work at both organizations. So there's actually quite a community that work across both organizations. In 2019, we chose to implement a common health information system, so the patient record. That changes everything as well because it's moving to one record for the KW community. It means that if you come to St. Mary's, you come to Grand River, your care is understood by teams in both places, and it changes things because you now start to work truly as one in just the normal everyday process and how you care for patients. So it's really set the foundation.
Yeah, I would agree. It really gives us a leg up. It doesn't mean that this is going to be painless as we go through it. That there's still the pain of change, even if it's good change, is being experienced and will continue to be experienced by our teams. But having that common medical staff, sharing some leadership across the two organizations, sharing the medical record. And I think between the three hospitals, especially over the last, I would say, half dozen years or so, just sharing that common spirit of we can accomplish so much more together. The way we responded to COVID, I think is a great example of that it was, again, community before brand. It wasn't about, well, what's good for Cambridge, what's good for St. Mary's, what's good for Grand River. It was about what does the community need?
Stephanie, and it's important that Cambridge Memorial be here too. While we're talking about this merger, what I've noticed particularly, and it's been a change since I started at the Chamber 14 years ago, with every time we've had the three institutions come together to speak, there's more collaboration, there's more working together. So while we're talking about the merger here, Patrick and your leadership team and Cambridge Memorial have been part of those discussions. Maybe talk a little bit about how that relationship is evolving, because it really is focused on the needs of the community and how we provide service and healthcare to citizens.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the number one reason we are here probably is for patients, right? And we share patients every single day. They live in our communities. We have our patients in Cambridge North Dumfries that go to St. Mary's for cardiac surgery. They often will go to Grand River for oncology, various other things like that. So we actually collectively try to service patients the best that we can do. Even from a critical care perspective, one thing that we learned in COVID was, sort of the walls came down, and there are many partners here today that we were on calls with our public health, and it was an opportunity for us really to take those barriers down and to provide the best possible care we could for patients. We continue to do that. Mental health patients between Grand River as a Schedule 1, ourselves in Cambridge as a Schedule 1. If there's a high occupancy in one, we automatically welcome them in, vice versa. Critical care, we are in a constant state of smoothing. we want to make sure that we have the right resources for the right patient. So we're thrilled and super supportive of the hospital and understanding what our role in that is. And there are so many things that we do that we are just better together.
Okay, and let's move on. I think it was exciting news, and I think it was in June. It feels like the summer. Was it June? July? We had the Premier here, we had the Minister of Health. In fact, we had the Minister of Colleges and Universities here for the site selection. To me, that's a big deal that they put the full court press, which means that we are on the radar screen for, we're doing the right work, we're doing the right things, the community is coming along. But give us an update to start about the process. We'll come to the process. About, we had the site selection announcement. What's next? What are the next pieces? Because like anything in government, it can't happen fast enough, and it's not going to be 2 or 3 years before we cut a ribbon. It's still a long period. What are the next steps, and what do we need to do to make sure that we're, along with you, allies with the province, of doing what the community needs to do to make sure that we are at the top of the list?
Yeah, great question, Ian. Thanks. And I would also add that we also had the Minister of Red Tape Reduction at,
Yes,
at
we
the
did.
announcement.
That's true.
So our local MPP. As you said, this can't happen soon enough. Mark alluded to it earlier. Even though collectively between the 3 hospitals, we've added over 200 beds to our collective operation. Every single day we're over capacity right now. And just north of the 401, we're 145 beds short of what the provincial average is. And the provincial average is the lowest in the country. We would be at the very bottom of OECD countries, even now, even with that addition of beds. So we have a real challenge to move as quickly as possible on this development. And Mark, as you would expect, Mark and I spend a lot of time having discussions with political staff, politicians, and ministry staff. And we are hearing all the right signals. You're doing all the right things. We get it. It is the right thing to do. And it is very clear to the 2 of us, this is now a political decision. So from a community standpoint, what we can do is make sure this is our #1 priority. And by making sure it's our #1 priority, bring a collective community voice to the people at Queen's Park and others that we need to be able to influence to get this over the line. Because we are moving the project. Even without certain approvals, we continue to move forward because we know we need it. We know we will get the approval. And we believe we have the support of the community as well.
And I think that's maybe important for the community to know is we are moving ahead. So we want to make sure that we're there when our political allies are there as well. So yesterday we had 250 of our folks across both hospitals over at UW planning for the future design of the hospital, thinking about the earliest design principles. How are we going to use the site? How are we really going to start planning? Technically, we haven't been approved to start that work yet, but that's how you sometimes have to do it. But we want to be done the work by the time they approve it. We want to be ready, shovels in the ground next spring. We'll get there so that when the political side is there, that we're able to move. And that way, this community moves ahead. And that's what's important, is that we keep the work going. And so you're going to see a lot more community engagement, a lot more reach out for inputs to make sure we're thinking as one as a community and getting ready when the province is.
We're a big fan of begging for forgiveness, not asking for permission as you keep moving this forward. So it brings us to Cambridge Memorial, and Cambridge Memorial has had a new expansion fairly recently. To me, as soon as it was done, I asked the question of Greg DeRocher, my colleagues from Cambridge, what's next? When's the next? Because there's going to be a next. And maybe if you can, talk about the planning that you're doing. Is this new hospital needed to be done and should have happened 25 or 30 years ago? It didn't, so it's happening now. But what's next, and how is the next iteration of what Cambridge Memorial's, the investment we're going to need to make in Cambridge Memorial, how does that fit into the system?
So for us, we are opening a new tower, a new redesigned tower in January. It's been a bit of a journey for those that have been involved in the redevelopment at Cambridge. Really excited about that. It will bring a new medicine unit. Rehab has been nicely taken care of at Freeport for us for the last 2 years as we have redesigned that. So we have that tower opening. And as Grand River goes and St. Mary's go to their new hospital, we will be in conversation to renovate the oldest tower that we have. So we can't all be under construction at the same time, I don't think, certainly from a transformation. So we are already thinking of that. Conversations are in the early development because we have the land and we have the tower, so it simply needs to be redesigned to bring the appropriate programming to there.
I think that's important is that this is not static. It's not we get this built and like that's what got us into this problem in the first place is we built hospitals and then didn't really keep up with the growth of this community, which has been exponential. I want to talk a little bit about the site selection process. I think there was, there was lots of community input. Maybe talk about that process because I know there was some trepidation in some corners saying, geez, we're going to have all kinds of people that are going to say, well, what about this site or that site? There were some very specific parameters that limited the number of places you could be. For our part, couldn't find a better partner than the University of Waterloo. It's a site that makes all kinds of sense. But talk about the community, the process that led you to that, because to me, I've heard very little criticism, which is unexpected in a good way.
Yeah, I'm happy to start. So firstly, we were really privileged to be supported by a great site selection panel, chaired by Carl Zare. Really what was important is we had to get the community's voice on what was going to be important around a site. And so as we look at different communities, I think cities have struggled to get input from their community. We did not struggle with thanks to everyone here and many others who got the word out. We had over 11,000 community members give voice around what's important in terms of the aspects of a site, the parameters that are most important, everything from transportation and access and proximity and how we would work in a new site relative to Cambridge and the existing site. So we had a lot of great input and that actually made the process easier because we actually knew the community's voice. And so, this was all kind of work last summer. And you're right, the parameters did limit the site, but that was purposely because we need to build multi-generational properties. As we just talked about, Cambridge was effectively phase 1 of our region's hospital redevelopment. This next site is phase 2. There will be a phase 3 and a phase 4, and we need to make sure we have the space to grow and build. And so we're really excited about how we landed in the UW site. But it really was a comprehensive process and supported by a lot of technical experts, and I would say our boards and I see some Cambridge board members here as well. Cambridge has been at that table with us as well, helping us think about site selection, because that's the benefit of partnerships is that Cambridge has had to go through all this. It's been nice to have a partnership across the three hospitals as we thought about site selection, as we thought about the relationship between the hospitals, as we build new space and what's next for our community.
Yeah, what I would add is that I would say public and transparent process, I think helped, messaging along the way. And there was obviously discussions that we had with really important stakeholders as we went through this. Our Indigenous partners is one that I can think of. Mark and I had the privilege of actually walking the site before the announcement with one of our local elders to actually have a ceremony about that site. So, and that's something that we're going to continue to do. And I would echo Mark's comments about how valuable the relationship with Cambridge has been as we've gone through this and their input, insight, and experience, and just willing partners.
So we're never ever far away from federal or provincial or municipal, for that matter, budget cycles. So less on the capital program. That's in place. There's work that needs to be done, and at an appropriate time, we hope that it will be actually in a budget speech and say it's in place, because we're not talking hundreds of millions. We're talking $3 or $4 billion, or $2.5, $3, $4 billion. It's not chump change. But one of the things that you talk about this being an innovation hospital and the innovation, Stephanie, you talked about how do we innovate on the people side of this. As we think of an innovation hospital system between the three, I hear words like technology and service delivery improvements and innovation and using tools to get more face time between patients and their clinicians. And we still have the issue of healthcare costs and the inflation that's in the system. Maybe talk if you were going to give some advice, and not necessarily an ask, but what are some of the things that should be invested in by the federal and provincial government in particular, who both have some role to play in this?
that would be a good investment in the longer term to help not only our region, but other communities, because we all have the same, and you've said, the same issue with healthcare, service delivery needs, but also the exponential growth in cost in the system. What would be, something that you would make a suggestion, Stephanie, to a federal or provincial government? You can pick one or you can do both.
Oh, wow. I think for us in the region of Waterloo, we're very lucky that we live in sort of an innovative and technology hub. So we have had lots of opportunity working with Communitech and done some great work about having a better day and what that would look like from a people perspective. We're starting, we're slowly dipping our toe in the water for AI and what that looks like, kind of at a smaller scale. But how do we use AI to increase efficiency? So certainly at the Cambridge, we've had been the recipient of a Graham Seed funding awards for 2 projects that we're currently doing. One is using artificial intelligence to really maximize the use of our OR blocks and increase efficiency for patients and getting patients in as quickly and as safely as possible. We're also using AI in our lab from a technology for tasks. So moving robots around to dispose of biological waste. So looking that, a person doesn't have to do that. Even something as simple as resume screening. So we're using AI to sort resumes now, of which, we could probably get 200 applicants potentially for an environmental service worker. And then using AI, there's an algorithm built. We're very lucky. We have a data science specialist who's amazing. And so side by side, the director of that program picked who she thought would be her top 10, and AI matched it perfectly. So it's just not working harder, it's working more efficiently. So smaller kind of an ideal, but I think honestly, the sky is the limit as to what we can be the benefit of, so.
I think if I had the opportunity to influence those discussions, I'd be asking people to think differently. So, you get 3 hospitals here, and I think we're all very clear. We are not the health system. We are part of the health system, but we are not the health system. And I think for decades, we've talked a lot about we need to invest more outside of hospital. But what we truly need to do is be able to make those investments while keeping the system stable. I just personally don't believe that we will build or hire our way out of the crisis that we're in. We have to actually change our approach. So I would suggest make sure there's enough investment to grow community and primary care while you stabilize the system that's there to support it. So hospital systems, stabilize them, and double down on the investment in Canadian innovation and allow it to grow in Canada and not just outside of our borders.
That's where I was going to go. So, we have a lot of great innovators in this community, and they struggle to get into healthcare, they struggle to get into the market, and they struggle to then stay in Canada. And there is a lot of policy barrier to that. As we think about, we've done a lot of work throughout the pandemic, actually, on innovation, and kind of working with our local innovation community. And our 2 hospitals now are launching something together with the University of Waterloo we call Care Next, which is about how do we actually be a better front door for innovators, and how do we also be a better research front door when innovation isn't quite ready for deployment, but ready for research. And so, we're excited what that partnership will bring and how it will let us, really lead the country in some of this work. But there is a lot we can be doing, and everything from what Stephanie said on AI, where we know every single one of us is a patient as well. You go in, you see your doctor, and they spend a lot of their time before on paper, now on screen. There are great programs that will take 40% of that work away. That is how we're going to kind of not grow our way by more people, but grow our way by technology and innovations. And there's so many other medical device innovations as well we can do for our clinicians. We've got a great environment here for that.
And we, the eCenter Health Innovation Network and others, and we have the Medical Innovation Exchange. So there's some companies, private sector, that are doing those things. I'm gonna come back to the next question because I want to touch on this. I think it for all of the hospitals, but in particular as you're thinking about the new hospital. So not giving a definitive answer, but what are some of the things that we talk about innovation of saying, can we do some of the services outside in other places that are not in a hospital setting, whether it's eyes or hips? I mean, there are some things that you can do that would say you still need the size, and you're gonna go through that visioning exercise of what needs to be in the hospital. But as much as anything, what can be outside of the hospital that can be run more efficiently? Is that part of the better patient care, maybe cost reduction, while still managing the need for you still have to have the core, you're still the institution of hospitals are still need to be resourced properly. Maybe talk a little bit about that, because I think that's part of how, how you size the hospital and how it's staffed is dependent on what services you're providing.
I mean, so we've got some great partnerships already in the community on that. If I think about, you mentioned eyes, we do half our cataract surgeries now in community as opposed to in the hospital at St. Mary's, and it's a way to expand access that we could not have possibly run on our own. So there are some great partnerships. The province is looking at expanding some of that partnership now, and we want to make sure that we can, as you said, kind of keep the hospital sustainable and leverage the investment the community's already made in equipment and services to make sure we're optimizing that while we expand some of that, while the province expands that private access. But there is a lot that we can do differently. As we think about the future build for our hospital, there is a lot more you can do in community. As our population ages, we're going to have a lot more chronic disease management. That's about enabling primary care and community care to do so much more than waiting for the safety net of the emerge in the hospital. And so it is a shift, but as Ron said, our advocacy would be, let's build up primary care, let's build up the community, let's build up those additional services so you don't risk the population's health by taking away the emerge department, et cetera. Build up the community around us first, and then you can build smaller hospitals.
Yeah, I would agree with Mark. There's definitely a role for services outside of hospital walls, and all three hospitals are actually encouraging that and doing that, right? All three of us have or are in the process of standing up a hospital at home program, which is really providing a hospital level service out in the community, in people's homes where they want to be. And we need to do more of that. If the private sector can move faster, be more nimble, and add capacity while we're also leveraging the capacity we've already invested in as taxpayers, we should be doing that. And I think there's lots of models from different parts of the world. I'm not going to point to the US, but there's other parts of the world that get this right.
I think of, I just received an email last week from a patient, from a gentleman in our community in his 80s who had seen an optometrist and actually was advised that, he needed some cataract surgery, was anticipating that he would he wanted to do he was going to in danger of losing his license and all of those things. And happy to say that with our partnership with Clear Vision Surgical that St. Mary's has as well, he had his surgery within 18 days. And, it is incredible when you think about during the pandemic, we did no cataract surgery at all. I think Cambridge had close to 5,000 cases on their wait list. I think St. Mary's was very similar. St. Mary's was very visionary in starting the program, bringing their ophthalmologists in, and it has been a partnership with Clear Vision that has been amazing. And you talk about impact on people's lives in your community when they lose their license or they can't read their medication bottle or any of those things. It has had such a positive impact for sure.
It's great to hear those stories, and I guess we touched on, and Stephanie, you started on this. There's the healthcare system. It's really people that run it. So we've talked about the infrastructure and the governance part. I mean, it's not just specialists and emergency room docs and nurses but there's all there's the clinicians, you talk about dietitians, you talk about, pharmacists and the role that we all play. I mean, if you look at this, not labor relations, but the human capital that's required to make sure there's a healthy system, which there's the professionals that are in hospital and out of hospital. maybe, what are some of the things that where there's some innovation, or how are we making it appealing to be here? Does the new hospital help in attracting people? I'm here it does, but what are some of those things that you're trying to do to make Waterloo region a more attractive? Because doctors can go anywhere. If they're in need around the globe, nurses, they're in need everywhere. What are the things that we should be doing for Waterloo region in this context to make ourselves the most attractive place to work?
Want me to go first?
Sure.
There are so many things. I think we live in a great community. I think the region, probably one of the most collaborative, supportive regions by far. I think that becomes very attractive. We sort of started behind the 8 ball before the pandemic. We were a system, there was a lot of baby boomers. We knew a lot of people were going to retire that were in healthcare. We were thinking we were preparing for it. We really weren't. And then the pandemic came, and anybody who could retire did. And people also really thought about how they wanted to work, and they wanted to work differently. And gone are the days where people want to work 90 and 100 hours a week, and they want to achieve that work-life balance, which I think is really, really important. So there was a mass exodus. We certainly, all three of us have benefited from ministry programs. If we think of new nurse graduates, clinical externs, clinical scholars, we have a lot of staff graduating who went to school and throughout all of healthcare that went to university and school really without having many clinical placements. So for most of us that are old like me, we went to nursing and we had a list of skills and we all had to find those and we had to do that and we had to graduate. But these were students that were coming out that really didn't even really actually know how to talk to a patient. So the world became very, very different, and our population in hospitals was not changing. And so we really needed to understand how we supported. One of the things were clinical scholar programs, where we actually have an educator kind of at the elbow with a novice nurse, of which we have many novice nurses, to maybe put a nasogastric tube or in all of those things that are really basic competencies for nurses, but they never had the opportunity to do it. Very scary, anxiety producing, and we really knew that we had to wrap support around people to do that. So we've been very grateful for that. We've worked collaboratively with Conestoga College for programming. There are so many things that we have done in regards to that. Do we have a long way to go? Absolutely. We think of a health information system, Cambridge still on paper. We are moving to an electronic, which I'm thrilled about. But we actually have people that we're actively trying to recruit that have never documented on paper. So they will choose to work somewhere else. And so those are the real things that we deal with every day. The Having a Good Day that we did with Communitech was really about how do we supportively onboard people? How do we welcome them in to the hospital? They spend a lot of time at work, and we want to make sure that we really take care of them. And it's our accountability really to send them home better than when they arrived, as opposed to being burnt out, overwhelmed, and all those things. So I could go on and on. It's a bit of a soapbox for me, so I will pass it over.
Yeah, if I turn to physicians in particular, I think we really have to have a mindset of this is a community investment and a community endeavor, right? So you would know very well the hospitals in KW are working with the chamber to say, how do we leverage the experience and expertise of the chamber to help recruit specialists? Well, I would say to the community that when we recruit physicians, it's not about the hospital and it's not about the chamber. It's actually about the resources and talent that we need in the community to grow as a community. And so how do we actually rally together as a community around bringing the expertise that we need local?
Maybe to add, you talked about new hospitals. So new hospitals, anyone who works in a new office space, you're happy to work in a new office space. It's bright, it's great, it's airy, you have a different way to network. It's the same in hospital. I mean, people, our nurses, our clinicians, they spend all day there. And it's a better experience for our patients, but it's a better experience for our teams as well. Cambridge is in a good place. We have 10 years to go. We're still going to work our 100-plus-year-old buildings till then. But there are things we can do in the immediate. Ron talked about the work we have together with the chamber around physician recruitment. It is also what are all the other wraparound supports? How are we offering turnkey solutions as a community to clinicians who want to come in? So if you're now on electronic record, so that nurses who have never worked on paper before actually want to come, to you have a turnkey office solution for physicians coming in, to, again, I'm going to come back to the AI example. There are many examples where clinicians will spend 40% of their day just documenting the conversations they had with us as patients. One of our physicians, as a great example, one of our cardiologists, in 2 hours spun up an AI tool, and she cut 20% of her documentation time. And she knows once she finishes training it, it'll be 40%. That's 3 hours back where she can spend time with patients. So it's also how are we as a community actually enabling our clinicians to actually just spend the time with patients and help ourselves as well.
And we got, our friends at Communitech and the Medical Innovation Exchange. There's lots of people that can work on those things. And I guess when I started the chamber 14 years ago, the chamber had already been in the family physician recruitment space for probably off the side of their desk, and then more formally for 10 or 12 years. So it's been 25 years. For every doctor that retires now, we anticipate that we basically have to replace with 2 because their patient loads go down. And so, and one of the things that Jenna would see often when she's traveling internationally now and at our weekends is the specialists or the family GPs, they may have a spouse who's a specialist and vice versa. So the connection between the hospitals and the recruitment that we're doing for primary care and specialists makes sense, and we're going to work out what that looks like. But the whole continuum of care and all of the people that are required to make people more efficient is part of what that human capital that's required. Let's move on. I touched on aging in workforce within healthcare. We have an aging population in the community. Which is, we've seen the headlines, it creates problems within the hospital setting when you have aging folks that are waiting for either retirement home or, aging retirement homes or assisted care, those sorts of things. Maybe talk about the stress that puts on the system, and because that's another investment which is separate from the discussion around a hospital, but it certainly impacts the service delivery and our ability to have better patient care, to have people in the right place where they need to be. So maybe let's just talk about that part, because that is not divorced from the investment that's going to be made in hospital care or in the people that provide the care.
Maybe I'll start first with just what that patient experience is. None of us actually want to go to hospital. We go to hospital where we're most vulnerable, where we're most hurt. It's actually the last place any of us want to be, and we don't really want you to be there either. We want you to be home. We want you to be well. That's why we've all been investing in hospital-at-home programs. It is a way to help people actually get back to home quicker, to maybe if you're in the emerge, to leave the emerge and not get admitted and go back home with care and supports. And we think those kinds of programs are going to be really important. They are going to address some of that system pressure as well. We are going to outstrip our hospital capacity before we build it. It's just the natural kind of way. We're on such a growth curve as a community. As Ron shared, we're about 150 beds short today in Kitchener-Waterloo, and every year we're going to be 30 beds more short until we build. And so that will be just a continued demand on the system. We have to work differently. And again, we know patients want to be home. So how do we shift more into that work? We've got work in partnership with Manulife over at the Boardwalk, where we're trying to work way upstream and say, how do we actually help the community get healthier? So we have something we've launched called the Prevent Clinic, which is about let's work way upstream to patients who don't have great access to primary care, don't have family doctors, and help them on their cardiac disease, their respiratory diseases before they actually have to come to the emerge. So how do we work way upstream to help people before they get sick? And then when they do come, how do we look at home and other programs to reduce the pressure on the system?
Yeah, I go back to what I said earlier. We really, as a system and as funders, need to think differently about it. So we traditionally think of institutions, but as Mark was saying, people don't necessarily want to be in an institution. They want to be at home as long as possible, and as long as they can do that safely. So those are where we need to be really thinking about our investments. Having said that, it will take time for our system to get there. So continuing to make those investments in supportive housing, which is a big need. continue to make those investments in long-term care, in rehabilitative care, transformational care, or transitional care, will continue to be important. The systems and the programs like Mark was talking about, investing upstream, as opposed to, building bigger emerges. I don't personally believe we build our way out of this. Like our emerge was built for 170 people. I think all three of us are already outstripping our emerge capacity. We see 225 people a day as a norm. So,
Okay, we're almost out of time. I'm getting the waving from the back of the room, which usually means we're out of time, but I'm going to go over anyways. I want to do two quick questions, and let's start with cast your crystal ball. Where are we going to be a year from now to know that we've made progress, and kind of maybe a little beyond that in the next 1 to 3 years? Where do we need to be, and what will tell the community that we're making progress? So I'm going to start with Stephanie, and then because we'll hear about the new hospital.
Okay, crystal ball. Wow. I think we have a foundation together, that we work very well together, but we are just one very small piece of a very large system. I think we do have to continue to invest in community, all the things that Mark and Ron both said, mental health addictions, housing. There are so many things, but I think the other thing that we have to really do is educate the community. And, what are patients' and families' roles in this? And sometimes I think families don't know. And, they think it's safer for patients to wait in a hospital. And, we know that, there's the potential that they could fall or they could get the wrong medication. And we don't have those sort of programs to keep patients at their utmost of being well when they're an alternate level of care. So they sit in our hospital beds. We don't have programming. We don't have those sorts of resources to allow them to have their best day either. So I do think that investment in the community is critical. As Ron said, we can't build our way out of this. And so how is it that collectively we work together? We're very symbiotic, I think, and definitely a sum of our parts. So
sure. Three things that I look for in the next year, right? So it's not a lot of time. One, it will be one new hospital corporation in Kitchener-Waterloo. Two, we will have official approval to be moving through our capital build between St. Mary's and Grand River. And the third is, for me, that was signal success, is that we are actually leveraging some of the capacity and capability of the hospitals to support primary care. I think there's a big missed opportunity there. And I think we can do something on that front.
Let's have a podcast and talk about that.
I'm third this time. So, I'll say maybe one step further on that approval that we've actually started developing the site for the new hospital, but that we are not keeping our minds just focused on merger and site, because if we do that, we've actually missed the window of what the community needs. 1 year from now, we've launched or relaunched neurosurgery back at Grand River. We've expanded cardiac, so we can actually stop patients going to London, Hamilton for their really advanced cardiac work. They're still going. And hopefully we have one record across the three hospitals for patients.
Okay, last one, and this is each guy. I'll give you 30 seconds each. What can the community do to help? I mean, this is not just a you issue. This is all of us together. It's the business community. It's partners. It's citizens. What should we be doing to help move to achieve some of those goals that you talked about?
Two things. One, really give a voice to the new hospital project is our number one priority. And then two, really step into it being a community effort to attract physicians and other healthcare experts to this region.
Ditto.
Okay.
Those really are the two. Like, we think there's a great opportunity to be partnering together between hospital and the business community on that, not just physician recruitment, but actually making this a home and a community they want to build in, because that's what's also going to help us attract other businesses in and be able to help the businesses grow.
same. I think it's the ongoing advocacy for sure.
Okay, well, you got your willing partner here, and again, with Best Waterloo, all our partners, we know how important that is. I'll just get you to sit here just while I wrap up. I want to thank all of our panelists, Ron, Mark, Stephanie, for taking the time to come together and collaborate once again, emphasizing the importance of a connected healthcare system in Waterloo region. This is an important topic for not only healthcare, but all of the issues around, are we ready to be a community of 1 million people? Doesn't matter whether it's 900,000 or 1 point, we have big issues, and healthcare is right at the top of the list. So we'll be coming back and revisiting this each year as we hold the community, ourselves, and the community as a whole accountable for making sure we have the programs, services, whether it's healthcare, housing, transit infrastructure that we know we need if we're going to be a successful community of 1 million people. So I appreciate each of you being here to start us on this discussion. As we close out today's event, I'd like to thank our incredible partners and sponsors once again, our bronze sponsor, our friends at the Boardwalk, the community partners, the City of Kitchener, the City of Waterloo, Communitech, Explore Waterloo Region, North Guide, the Township of Woolwich, and Waterloo Economic Development Corporation. Our production sponsor today, Goodco Productions. Our host venue, thanks to our friends here at Ken Sealing Waterloo Region Museum. And a special thank you to our hospitality partner for providing this morning's breakfast, Chef D Catering and Events. And finally, a big thank you to all of you for participating today and for your continued support of the Chamber's programs and events. We're thrilled to have you with us for this first event in our Vision 1 Million series, and love for you to join us for upcoming events where we'll focus on infrastructure. And in November, we'll hear from Phil Verster from Metrolinx around the all-day two-way go and increase in service on that front. For additional networking opportunities and for all the programs and services available from the Chamber, go to our and virtual events from, you can find them on our website at greaterkwchamber.com. Thanks once again for joining us today, and have a good afternoon.